In the history of popular music, records are meant to be broken, but one still stands untouched, almost unreal in its dominance. Not by a performer riding a single wave of fame, not by a band at their peak, but by a songwriter operating at a level so precise it felt supernatural. At the center of it all was Barry Gibb, a man whose falsetto became iconic, but whose real power lived in the songs he crafted for others. In the late 1970s, he wasn't just part of the Bee Gees. He was quietly reshaping the entire sound of pop music from behind the scenes. What followed in 1978 wasn't planned, wasn't engineered, and certainly wasn't repeated. For consecutive #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, all written or co-written by the same man, performed by different artists, each carrying a distinct sound yet stamped with the same unmistakable touch. It was a streak built not just on talent, but on timing, instinct, and an almost relentless creative drive that turned studios into factories of gold. It began as disco surged out of underground clubs and into the global spotlight, with the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack acting as its cultural detonator. Barry, alongside his brothers, had already reinvented themselves once, but now they were evolving again, leaning into rhythm, groove, and that soaring falsetto that would define an era. When Stayin Alive hit #1, it wasn't just a song, it was a statement, a pulse that matched the heartbeat of a generation. But what made the moment surreal was what came next. Almost immediately, Barry replaced himself at the top of the charts with "Love is Thicker Than Water," performed by his younger brother Andy Gibb. Different voice, same pen, same result, #1. The industry barely had time to react before it happened again. Night Fever surged to the top, dripping with the signature sound that had now become unavoidable, only to be followed by "If I Can't Have You," performed by Yvonne Elliman, completing a run that felt less like a coincidence and more like total control over the musical landscape. What made this streak so extraordinary wasn't just the numbers, it was the range. Disco anthems, emotional ballads, radio-ready pop, each song tailored perfectly to the artist delivering it, yet all connected by Barry's instinct for melody and emotion. At one point, he had written or co-written 5 of the top 10 songs in America at the same time. It wasn't just success, it was saturation. Turn on the radio, and chances were you were hearing something that came from his mind. For a moment, it felt like he wasn't competing with other songwriters. He was competing with himself. And winning. But behind the dominance was a cost. The pressure to maintain perfection, to keep producing hits at a relentless pace, began to blur the line between passion and exhaustion. Studios became second homes, sleep became optional, and the joy of creation risked being swallowed by expectation. As quickly as the rise had happened, the backlash began to build. Disco, once unstoppable, started to face resistance, culminating in events like the Disco Demolition Night, where the very sound Barry helped define became the target of public rejection. Yet even as trends shifted and the spotlight moved on, one thing remained unchanged: the record. Decades later, no songwriter has matched those 4 consecutive #1 hits across different artists. Not in an era of streaming, not in a world of global playlists and viral fame. Because what Barry Gibb achieved wasn't just about charts, it was about alignment. The right songs at the right time, delivered through the right voices, all driven by a creative force that, even now, feels impossible to replicate. And maybe that's why it still stands. Not as a challenge waiting to be beaten, but as a reminder of what can happen when talent, timing, and pure musical instinct collide in a way the world may never see again.